So, I'm usually a word of mouth guy, but I stumbled across my anime list and I've been using it to try and find something to watch. And this can be a process sometimes because it's always hard for me to start something new. And you may ask what my thought process or criteria is when I'm looking for something new, but it's pretty simple. I see a high rating and I click. And I'm no grizzled anime vet or anything like that, but it was pretty reassuring to see that Steins was only 24 episodes long. And this is considering the last anime that I went and got caught up on, not knowing if I will actually look like this by the time it's over. Well, anyways, I got buckled up, I locked in, thought to myself, this will probably be a piece of cake. I'll probably finish this in a week or so, right? Wrong. It did not work like that. And trust me, I hate looking stuff up for shows, but I genuinely had to look up when does this show start making sense because I was confused. And looking back on it, I kind of feel bad that I even thought this way, but this character kept saying this every time she's on the screen. I was like, what is going on? Fortunately, during the beginning, the main character, Okabe, or Hyo Kyoma, as he calls himself,
俺は狂気のマッドサイエンティストホーイン今日まだ
he's hilarious and pretty entertaining, and he quite honestly carried the show for me in the beginning. But all the other characters kind of need some time for me to grow attached to them and understand their personalities. And just to clarify, I'm not going to dive too deeply into the plot or look at things through a super critical lens or anything like that. And after the first few episodes, I started to wonder if this was something that had maybe a high critical score, but wasn't necessarily for everyone. Like something that maybe was very good, but not everyone's cup of tea. But as it turns out, I think I was just being impatient and made a wrong read here. Normally, I'd say it'd take a week or two for me to finish a 24 episode anime, but for this, it took me over a month, and that's because I kept falling asleep during it. But I'd say once I realized it was more about building up the characters and their stories and kind of how they mesh with each other instead, rather than focusing on the plot, I really started to enjoy it much more. And not to spoil anything too much, but there is a huge turning point in this anime where things start to come together and make more sense. And from this point on, I think the quality skyrockets and I truly fell in love with it. And despite the stakes getting pretty high in this one, you're still connected to the characters and can relate to all their problems. And the whole anime itself is pretty grounded. And it never gets too unrealistic or feels like the entire universe is going to blow up, with every decision that comes. The actions that the characters take in this are mostly smart and calculated, and the consequences from them feel very real and tailored to the unique situations that they're in. I love that the writing stays true to the characters and who they are. They are scientists for a reason, and if they do actually make any dumb or questionable decisions, it's more so from their youth and the stress of being in very complex problems, rather than the overused trope of smart characters being very dumb for plot convenience. And I want to give a shout out to Mayuri because it took me some time to appreciate her character, and I really ended up loving who she was through the story because, unlike most of the group, she isn't a scientist or great with computers like Daru. And despite being out of place and not really understanding what any of her friends are talking about, she's very understanding and is also very emotionally smart. And she reminds me of some people I know in real life that don't really know what trolling is or anything like that. But honestly, I can't really blame her when you got Okabe doing a bit about an organization being after him for most of the show.
機関がついにここまでエージェントを送り込んできた何
And to be clear, I laugh at this every single time. I feel like Mayuri definitely has some growth in this anime, and she honestly starts to do this bit herself, and it's hilarious. But as for the main character, Okabe, he's definitely one of my favorites of all time in any media. He's funny, caring, relatable, he's a leader, and he's definitely what brings all the other characters together. Like, there would be no friend group or lab group without him. And he also has one of my favorite dynamics ever with another character, and that's with Max and Chrissy.
待てよあの小娘おそらくは機関のエージェントこの講義そのものが
It's easy to get attached to her because she's a great character in her own right, but her and Okabe definitely bring the best out of each other, and I think it's vital for the story. Their banter with each other is pretty funny throughout the anime, and they're obviously rivals as scientists, but they slowly grow more and more accustomed to each other, and the connection between them definitely feels refreshing. And again, I don't want to give away too much, so I'll move on. So I want to retouch on the point I was making earlier about how I felt the anime was potentially something that had a high critical score, but perhaps wasn't something that was for me. And I definitely take that back and would much rather compare it to a story that needs sufficient time to develop and is much different during and after you see it, or throughout the first time you see it and then the second time. You can never see it for the first time again, which always hurts, but with the second time, you go back and you pick up on all the Easter eggs and clues and realize so much more throughout the story. I also wanted to know on how good the OST is, especially the intro and the outro. I really like a lot of the music in this one. The environment feels very real, and like I said earlier, the anime feels very grounded. And something as little as the sound design of the cicadas in the background just contributes to making it feel very immersive. And I can't believe it took me this long to mention it, but the voice acting in this anime is truly incredible from all of the characters. And with that, I basically want to wrap it up and give my final score for Steins Gate. And this being the first video of my reviews, there's no precedent for how the scoring will work, but that'll definitely become more evident as time goes on and more videos are made. And now, without further ado, my score of
シュタインズゲート
this one definitely hits a spot for me. It's great story, great characters, there's good twist, just about everything you could want in an anime. The only knock I have on it is that it took a little too long in the beginning to kind of know what was going on. Obviously, I like it now and understand more, but I kind of want to rate it based on my first experience and kind of how I was going through it. And I know you're not supposed to love every character, but there's definitely some weaker characters in Steins Gate. Overall, the characters have great personalities, and I love most of them, and they show a ton of growth throughout the story. But there's definitely some weaker ones, and could have been fleshed out maybe a little bit more. But yeah, this was a great experience. I had a ton of fun watching it, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone looking to give it a chance.